CT's Green Thumb with Carla Horsina. Brought to you by St. Mary's Nursery every Tuesday morning on Breakfast Television.
Good morning, we're back with Carla Horsina from St. Mary's Nursery, and it's time to answer viewer questions. We've been asking you to write us in through Facebook, Twitter, and breakfasttelevision.ca, and we have a good one today about a mock orange bush. Here's Kathy.
This is our mock orange that we basically planted when we first moved in from Ken's father-in-law's house. And since we planted it, it blossomed the first year, and after that we have not got very many blossoms on it at all. Actually, this year was probably the first, which was about 15 or 20. And I'd love to know what I'm doing wrong and what I could do to help it to blossom as beautiful as his still do.
Oh, all right.
Okay, mock oranges, as they mature, there's a few things that sometimes we don't suspect. Am I spraying the mock orange, with a insecticide or something? Because sometimes at the point where the blossoms are going to be coming out, if you spray it, that could lose your blossom, lose your bloom.
Oh.
Two, if it's kind of like sometimes we lose our blooms because of temperatures, if we get that last bit of frost. But because Kathy says every year something else is happening that she's not getting a blossom, so what we want to do is in plants like that we want to shock it. And the way that you can basically shock some of your plants is finding that drip line of where the plant is and taking a nice big spade and going along and cutting all the way around the drip line of those roots. So we're basically going to pretend that we're going to harvest and lift it, but we're not. We're just going to basically take a shovel, go down as deep as we can around the drip line or the root systems where those fine roots are, and the plant's going to go, oh, something's happening. So usually in those trends, a plant will try and do a flush of bloom the next year to give it go through. So try that out, Kathy. Take your shovel, cut around the drip line of it, and see what happens next year.
Isn't that scary though? Couldn't you potentially kill it by cutting off too much root?
You're doing the hairline roots. If you were going to cut into the main lines, but what you're doing is at the drip line, and let's say this is the drip line, it's the outer edges of your shrubs, you're going to sort of go along and do a cut on there. So you're actually cutting on the finer roots, which are the newer roots that were developed in that year. You're not going further in and getting the large anchor roots that are on it.
Okay.
So there isn't, because if I was basically going to harvest and remove that tree and transplant it someplace else, then I would be digging around that entire area anyway.
Right.
Okay?
So with the mock orange though, can you expect it to bloom every year? It should be coming back all the time?
The mock orange should rebloom year after year. The one thing is it follows suits in that family of when do I prune? And we see that sometimes with people also saying that they don't get a repeated bloom on their lilacs, is we have to understand that lilacs and mock orange are together in that you don't do pruning on them until after they've finished blooming. So if I was to take that mock orange and that lilac and say, okay, in the fall I'm going to do a cleanup and I'm going to prune that back, you're actually cutting off the blooms for next year's spring. So lilacs and mock orange, as soon as they're finished blooming, the heads are gone, they get that brown sort of muddy look to the blossoms. That's when you do your pruning, and then next year you'll see that you'll have your bloom.
Is there a good time to prune?
Generally it's about 2 weeks after the blossoms are finished on your lilacs, on your mock orange. Your lilacs will bloom first, your mock orange will bloom second. So you have to know when your blossoming is happening, when you're going to do your pruning.
Wow, a lot of it is timing.
It's basically timing, because those two plants actually set the blooms for next year's growth on the current year it's in.
Wow.
So, hope that helps out. Let me know.
Well, there you go, Kathy. Thank you so much for your question. And if you have any questions for Carla, write us in Facebook, Twitter, breakfasttelevision.ca, and we'll get the expert to answer them, because I don't think you've been stumped yet.
Not yet.
Think so.
Not
if
yet.
You have a tough one, send it to us. More BT coming up. Stay with us.